Hey everybody, it's Jeremy. Welcome back to EA Tetragrammaton. This is turn 191. What's your minute? Logos casts Purgatory. Your global enchantment was overpowered by the existing global enchantment and failed to take effect. And that's pretty much it. So there's a bunch of other random attacks as Lanka closes about us, tightens the noose, so to speak. And there's a couple of like counterattacks that we threw out from immortals and things like that. We haven't lost any of our thrones yet. We haven't lost our capital, though our capital is now pushed. We no longer have Dominion in our capital, basically. But that's pretty much it. After not having Purgatory come back up, I cannot see a way for us to not just push Lanka back and win. Not just that. I can't see a way for us to mount an effective defense at this point. With Lanka pushing our Dominion in multiple locations, we're basically done. So, it is at this point in the game that I went back and once again conceded, right? Because I did this already when we failed at Sleepy Wolds and Jabal Kish. And this time, everyone was in agreement that the game was over and no one had any real interest in trying any new things, except I recommended that rather than just end it, especially since we had gone through so much, I recommended that we go ahead and actually let Lanka win, so that we could see the score graphs and the view history and all that jazz. So, what I did at this point was I went through and set all of our throne provinces to retreat. All of the commanders, etc. Everything is set to retreat. And I told Lanka, hey, there you go, everything is retreating. Come and get it. And amusingly, it still took a couple turns because Lanka actually has an issue with H3s. I think so. His god is horror marked and keeps getting killed, I believe, by horrors, right? And then he only has the one prophet. He doesn't have access to any other H3s. I think Relay has done a good job of taking all of the sea provinces, basically, of teleporting into all of the sea provinces and being a nuisance there. So I don't think he has the ability to do like Bishop Fish or anything like that. So this still ended up taking a couple turns, which of course it did, because this is the game that never wants to end. But the game that never wants to end is now, in fact, done. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to load up the last turn, which is turn 195. Rename some files here real quick. And we are going to take a look at the score graphs, take a look at the history, and just talk about the game a little bit. So, yep. Alright, so turn 195. Rejoice, a true god has ascended. Lanka finally wins. What did he take? He took Hall Woods, I believe. And we have Realm of Silence. He took White Forest as well, and Raphabolia. But yeah, anyways. So let's take a look at score graphs first, and then we'll do a view history. So here we go. Score graphs. We got provinces. And we can see, where am I? Right, our rise throughout. We were pretty run-of-the-mill throughout the majority of the game, until we got to the point to where we attacked Pangea. So we have this part right here where we attacked Pangea, and we started to rise significantly. Lanka was actually trailing for a long period, coming out of the Mictlan Wars, which were immediately following the Pangea ones, with Hinnom behind me. There's a big spike here with Lanka raiding a bunch of Hinnom territory, but it starts to equalize, and I actually generally rise throughout until we get to the point to where Lanka and I begin to go at it, and then it's just massive drops repeatedly, right? And this is actually after the first attempt at me rushing thrones, so that's about where this is. This is after Hinnom had fallen around this period, and I was a little bit in the lead, and then it just goes a little bit of light raiding, and then I ran for the thrones, and whoop, back, whoop. So, a fun little situation there. Fortification-wise, I was ahead for a long while until towards the end of the game there. Lanka went with the strategy of continuously throwing up forts, which I assume was done by 3 red seconds, I think is what it's called. So, a very good strategy. Should have been something that I looked into, but did not. Income-wise, this one breaks my heart so bad. Again, we were after the Pangea War, right? We were towards the top, and continued to rise, and we're mostly ahead of Lanka and Hinnom with a couple of trades back and forth until, again, towards the end, Lanka started to raid us down. We have this one singular giant spike of Dreamland where we had Gift of Nature's Bounty up, which was, if only that had stayed up, my god, it would have been amazing. It would have been super amazing. And we can also see, here's another thing, we can see the big dips, mostly with me, but more with Hinnom, and actually didn't affect Lanka nearly as much, but these are the cataclysms from Hinnom, right? Where we just got these global just books. So interesting. Gem usage, again, after the Pangea Wars. Prior to the Pangea Wars, again, we were just kind of like, I guess we were third-ish. So that's a little bit better than we were in other things. Pangea was pretty ahead at the beginning. I wish the, I don't think it allows you to do this, but one, I wish this actually showed like turn markers like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, that type of thing. And two, I wish you could zoom in and out of specific sections, right? Like, I really wish the score graphs, again, I feel like I'm doing this all the time now, but Dominion 6, right? Give us more fine-tuning with these score graphs. Allow us to, look at from turn 20 to turn 30, right? To let us actually specify in drop-downs, turn 1 to turn 70, turn 23 to turn 27, so we can see the minute point by point, and let us pick, right? Like, do we want data points by turn, or do we want data points by every 5 turns, or whatever. Give us the flexibility to actually like customize these score graphs so that we can get good detailed information, but also see where patterns are. Maybe there are patterns with specific nations or things like that that we could see if we had a better, because right now I can't see shit about the beginning of the game. I don't have a fucking clue. Yeah, there's stuff there, right? But if I could zoom in on the first 10 turns, right? Like, that could be pretty interesting. But as it is, I can't. So, back to gem income. we went pretty ham after the Pangea War. We were probably the largest nation next to Hinnom. And then this section is where we started to get a lot of our gem globals up and online. And also we started to get through here, right? This is a lot of us raiding Hinnom territory, which is why you see it like jump up for us, but also jump down for Hinnom. So that's what a lot of that amount is. And then of course, right, we're ahead a fair amount, and then this is where we do the whole Jabal Kish, Sleepy Wolds thing. We start to lose our globals, and then we just plummet from there. Research-wise, we were third to hit the cap. Relay actually in first. Relay was relatively unaffected by the multiple wars that happened throughout and was able to just blow up that research. But then I don't think did a whole lot with it. I think it's at this point, right? Probably a little prior to this point. Then in here, right at this curve, especially like you take like the Pangean time period, it's in here at this curve that Relay really could have started to force their superiority in terms of research and like alpha, someone, and come up on land and actually make themselves a big threat. I think they tried that with Lanka, but I think Lanka actually defended against it, and then after that happened, I think maybe the time period was past. I will say it wasn't entirely past. Relay could have attacked me throughout that entire game. At any point when I was engaged with Pangea or with Hinnom or with Lanka, Relay could have actually come at me and just wrecked me, because I was not prepared to deal with anything that Relay might have thrown at me. Not really, anyways. But yeah, we were third, which is fun, cool, good to know. Our research was, we were pretty far behind. Actually, so was Lanka. We were pretty far behind until leading up into the Pangean Wars. Dominion-wise, so, wow, look at that Dom from Pan. Holy shit, good job, Pan. Pan should have won, but when Pan went for the win, everyone responded at the right time, and I think a couple of people had some clutch wins. We, for instance, had that clutch and kind of greedy earthquake play with our god, and then, hit with a really solid battle with our army. So Pan really did a very nice job, but it was just a perfect storm to take that one away from them. And then, so we did really well Dominion-wise, pushing our Dominion, and then we can see all of a sudden just, I really wish that, hindsight is 2020, right? Absolutely. So I went through, this game taught me so much, and I think we're going to talk more about that when we go through like the history view. But I undervalued my Dominion in this game, especially considering that I had Gift of Health up, and I should have gone for Purgatory earlier. I absolutely had the ability to go for like a full-on 999 gem cast Purgatory, and make it all but impossible for Lanka to do anything about. And I absolutely had the ability to, one, do targeted alpha strikes on particular forts, get in there, build a temple, and get my Dominion growing in locations, and also to do things like stealthy preaching. I should have done that way earlier. And if I had, I would have been able to have, one, I would have been able to just dominate Lanka with my Dominion, but two, that would have afforded me a lot more utilization of my power points, like things like Gift of Health. I was great on the defense, right? But as soon as we started attacking Lanka's strongholds, or Hinnom's strongholds, right? If we remember that type of situation, then I kept running into issues. So if I had been more proactive with my Dominion management, rather than, and we had a lot of Dominion, don't get me wrong, we had a lot of Dominion, but a lot of this is just passively because we had a fair amount of thrones, but also because we had the most land in the game throughout a good portion of this, right? So a lot of this Dominion was just passively because we had more land, and thus we had more Dominion. Had we actually pushed that Dominion advantage, like really gone in and focused in on putting up temples everywhere, so we have an immense amount of temples checks, preaching, etc., etc., then I think that would have been a really big play for us. But anyways, army size. Oh, so this is not even a competition. I feel like most of the rest of everything has been a good showing from us until the end, where Lanka starts to win out on us. But army size is just goodness gracious. Now we do have a little bit of an uptick here, and this is as we start utilizing more of our gems for things like kidnids and I think this is also as we start to get more into blood and we start to get a lot more thrall spawns, right? Is where we start to peak up here. But I mean, this is a non-undead nation, right, versus a undead nation, right? The ability to free spawn. And here's the other thing. I don't remember. I need to look at Lanka, honestly, because I'm not sure exactly how this works. But I think if you check, right, like, here's the research cap. So you can see where he goes from needing researchers, right, to not needing researchers. And then all of those can go into unit generation, right? Because Lanka has the priests that can free spawn, right? Or I guess turn spawn. It's not exactly free spawn. And, go from there. So we can just see it just skyrockets the amount of... And it's really sad because I'm like, I killed so many undead in the last 50 turns in the war against Lanka. But this is like the last 50 turns, and it's barely... Well, I say the last 50 turns. This is probably about the last 50 turns, and it's not even, no, it's nothing. Like, these were the big fights at the various thrones and things like that, and it's barely shift. It's not actually decreasing his total. It's just halting his influx, which was just really, really good. I just didn't have. I could have if I had thought about it and prepped for it. But for what I had, I didn't have the answer to the massive amounts of units that he had. And then ascension points is all over the place, right? We got so close. Pan got pretty close too, but and here we all just kind of like staled out between Hinnom and I and Lanka. But I got so close here and just couldn't finish it. Lanka took it at the end. Very, very well done, Lanka. Good shit. Like, that's a really, 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 really good game. The longest game I've ever been in. The longest game a lot of people have ever seen. I don't think it is the longest game by any stretch of the imagination. I think there's some 200 plus turn games. But a lot of people haven't seen a game go this long. And part of that's with good reason. I mean, especially when I started this game, I was a very inexperienced player. And I still consider myself to be a, maybe not inexperienced player, but I'm not a great player, right? I don't have a lot of tricks up my sleeves. I don't have a crazy amount of strategic foresight. I've just played the game a fair amount, so I know a couple things here or there. But, oh my god, the amount that I learned, learning right? Actual legitimate counters to astral corruption in this game is something that I can take through every other game for the rest of my Dominion's history, right? Like, knowing and no idea that astral corruption did not target mindless units. There's nothing. And after I learned that, right, I scoured everything. I looked at the wiki, I looked in the manual, right? Like, I looked in the inspector, and there is nothing to say. I think the wiki says it now, right? But when I first looked, this was, 6 or 7 months ago. The wiki was almost brand new at that point. Maybe not brand new, but you get my point, right? The information just didn't seem to be out there, and it's really not. It's in a handful of like Steam threads, and then it's in the hands or minds of people who play the game, people on the Discord channels or Discord servers, right? Like, you really, to learn new things, you have to either experience them, get hit by them, or you have to go ask a bunch of questions. So learning that astral corruption or horrors in general don't target mindless units, the big deal. Learning, right, that you can kind of cheese things with a Ring of Returning, another really good strategy. That's not a fail-proof strategy, but it is a really good strategy. Had I known about the Ring of Returning or the, mindless thing, we had such... I mean, we can look at it again, right? We had such a big advantage on gem income through a crazy amount of it. And keep in mind, this is through time periods where other individuals had things like Arcane Nexus, right? Which I don't know that Arcane Nexus counts for... I'm not sure that Arcane Nexus counts the generation of gems per turn from forging and rituals, which is where the majority of the power of Arcane Nexus comes from. So I'm not sure that that is a fair comparison, but even if it doesn't, right, we had a crazy amount of gem income comparatively, and we could have translated that into empowering golems or just forging Rings of Returning. I could have had, because I did this, right, like I had, 15 Dwarven Hammers. I could have had 15 Rings of Returning and just been shoveling out, because I really wasn't doing much else with my Astral Pearls, honestly. So I could have just been shoveling out individuals specifically designed to cast these rituals and survive, right? Because the other thing is making sure that your individuals are strong enough to not get one shot, and Ur's a great candidate for that, right? We have most of our things aren't going to get one tapped by something, especially not if they're in a gift of health, right? So we have that. And then we also have, you want to make sure you don't get soul slayed, right? That type of thing. Because if you don't get one tapped, right, the only alternative is if you get soul slayed by a horror, or consumed by a horror, I guess, is the third option. But that's significantly more rare. But so that's just a matter of like putting lead shields and anything to increase your magic resistance, which we would have had a pretty decent run of. So I'm sad that we didn't have that knowledge going into things. I think that would have massively changed things. But I mean, that's the name of the game, right? That's the concept, is you learn through experience in a game like this, and it made for an amazing game that we didn't know that. So that's me gushing about that particular thing. Let's take a look at the view history, which I'm going to throw this out there. I didn't even know that this was a thing until not too long ago, right? A couple weeks ago, I think, at most. And now I actually get to see it in a game. I've never done this in a game, because most of the games that I get to, most of the games, right, or a lot of games, you get knocked out of, you never make it to the end. or the games don't actually end. That's what happens with the majority of my games. I can say, thankfully, that most of my games I make it to the end of, but most of the games don't actually end in a true sense of the word, i.e. a lot of games are decided, if they're not decided early, right, by someone throne rushing, they're decided by people just being like, okay, I quit, I'm done, you know, throwing in the towel, and that happens with a fair amount of games. So really interested to see this. I've seen it, right? So it, and I made this comment. I'm gonna make it again. Giving us more control over things. Dominion 6. Give us more control over things. There might be hotkeys here that I'm not aware of. See, we tested. So if you press space, you can pause it. But here's my question. Why is that not shown anywhere, right? Why does it not have a little message that says space to pause, F to fast forward, D to backs or to go back, to rewind, right? Like if there are controls for this, Dominions, I love you to death, but you are so obtuse with your AI. Illwinter, you are obtuse with your AI. Give me more clarity on what my options are so I can make use of them, right? Okay, anyways. So this is us. I love being able to actually see everyone's little starting stuff. So we're not going to watch everyone's situation, but we might like actually poke around here or there. We're going to watch just maybe not like a full, but we're going to watch the majority of our starting expansion and everything like that, and just talk about things. So, that work? Okay, that was like really weird. We'll just do this. My goodness. Is it going? Okay, so that's one turn. Oh. No, it doesn't do that, does it? Okay. This is one turn. This is just showing, okay, Dominion 6, show us an actual review. This is just, there's gotta be other. Like, I'm just gonna press buttons. There's gotta be other commands here, right? Oh, okay, we can turn off and on things. Okay, we can turn that off and on. Just trying to see if there's like, show me actual provinces. Oh, okay. We can turn names off and on. We can turn this off and on, and we can turn icons off and on. But we can't like see actual provinces or anything like that. That's not super useful. I'm just gonna throw that out there. That's not super useful. So all this is wow. This is significantly less exciting than I thought it was gonna be. Well, I say that. That's not true. That's not true. I know that's not true. I know that's not true. Because now we can see expansion. I'm sorry. I jumped the gun. I don't know why I jumped the gun, because I watched this earlier and I knew that we could see banners. Anyways, so we have expansion. I want to control to like just. Is there a? I can't bring up like a command prompt or anything like that. Yeah. Alright, whatever. Spring, late spring. Okay, so we did the... I'm really curious about expansion. So we did the double expand on turn 3. Morio did 1, Yomi did 1, Agartha did 1, Tirnanog did 1. Pan did the 2. Kailasa did 1. My god. Ugh, this is the other thing yeah. I want to click things, I want to look around at things, but if I do anything else, it like takes me to the actual map. More control over this type of thing would be amazing. Okay, so looks like we did okay. Okay, so this is where Fimoria starts to get super aggressive real quick, right? So we expand well over here. And that is the start of our big oh shit moment. What is this? Turn 5 or some shit? This is when we bumped with Fimoria and we lost our god on like our expanding god on turn 5. And I was convinced at this point. I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, that's really unfortunate. I guess that's game." That was legitimate. 190 turns later. I was convinced right here that was game because Fimoria, we bumped and I was like, oh, well, they just killed my god. They know that I am invested in that, right? Surely they're just gonna run at me now. That is not what happened though. So they go north, right? And they do expand southward towards our borders as well. But you can see our whole thing we stagnate. And they get super aggressive against Agartha. So this was a mixture of... I'm not really sure what this was a mixture of, honestly. I don't want to say that I did any clever diplomacy with Fimoria. I just talked to Fimoria. I was just like, hey, oh, wow, that was a really crappy bump. That's really unfortunate, and blah, 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 blah. So, again, I don't know that I did anything good other than just being talkative. I just messaged Fimoria and was like, hey, that's blah, 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 blah. And then they just decided to not go after me. They went after Agartha instead, which ended up being a godsend for me because it gave me the time to get back on my feet. Because not only did I think we lost our god, we did lose our god in Tyrannia, but I think we also lost an expansion party elsewhere, right? So we're able to recover, we're able to get a couple of locations under our belt, but our expansion at the end of the day is, or our initial expansion is pretty rough, excepting that a couple of other people get distracted elsewhere. And I say distracted elsewhere, what I mean is, Kailasa is distracted over here and does not really advance for motherfucker. Don't click anything, Jeremy. Please don't click anything. Can I click? Nope. You can't left click or right click. Don't click. Okay, well, we'll just watch. So, Kailasa... Let's actually watch Kailasa. Do they go to war with someone else? So, they get over here to the Forest of Surings pretty quickly. I didn't have any diplomacy, really, like, negotiating with them. It looks like I just got lucky there, honestly. They probably could have charged in. And then the other thing that I got lucky with was Pangea picked Tirnanog to go... Oh, that's what it is they were focused on... When Pan went for Tirnanog, Kailasa was the other one, the other recipient of Tirnanog land. So they were focused down here rather than looking at other opportunities. And the same thing for Pan. Pan was focused on Tirnanog rather than... There were a couple of territories over here that I didn't take for a long time. I do remember talking to Pan, though, because very early on we established borders, and I think it was basically that we just established the river as the border, which is why I don't think I took Hall Woods for a really, really long time. I think actually I took it from Pan, but I think I think it was like river down here. And I think I got this with the concept that I was going to get Titan's Breath for Hall Woods, you know? So it was like, but yeah. Anyways. So, somehow, while that was happening, I managed to talk to Fomoriya enough to get them to attack Agartha. And I think they were actually doing it themselves. I didn't really have to convince them to do this. But they attacked Agartha, and it did not go well. So, in that, I started, okay, well, I'll help against Agartha. Hoping, right, that I would eventually be able to take all of this, which is kind of what happened as Yomi came in against Agartha, trying to eat up things, and also started to war against Fomoriya. That left me, Fomoriya could no longer focus on that, that left me to take Agartha, which did take me a little bit. I was not fast about that in any way, shape, form, or fashion. But taking Agartha and having 2 capitals at this point, so early on, well, I say so early on in the game, it's year 2 at this point, so it's really not early on in the game, but it's before anyone else has gotten super strong either, right? Kailasa is relatively big because they got to eat a good portion of what would be Tirnanog lands. Pan is obviously pretty big because they got Tirnanog and Tirnanog lands. But then they kind of get stifled, right? There is war going on against... I forgot about this. So Mictlan and Saramatia went to... I think it was Mictlan and Saramatia went to war. And then Hinnom came in and Pan came in. And Pan ends up being... This is kind of, I think, overly greedy from Pan. Because Pan comes in and dive bombs the Saramatian capital. Which gives them this kind of like little spaghetti arm going out. And automatically, right, is going to make... Everyone's already... It's early age Pan, right? So everyone's already like, oh, crap, it's early age Pan. We can't let that be a thing. And then you've already taken Tirnanog, and then you go in and snipe Saramatia. So now Kailasa's looking at you, Hinnom's looking at you, Mictlan's looking at you. I'm not looking at you because I'm not looking at shit because I'm real bad right now. I think in my mind, right? I'm sitting here. This is actually what my mindset was at this point in the game. I was like, holy crap, that early game was so bad for me. But in point of fact, I did a lot of negotiating with my neighbors, and it ended up being perfectly fine because I was able to just take out Agartha, who put up a good fight, like rebuffed me a fair number of times. But I was able to actually win out in the end. And this was the just primo thing, is that Fomoriya and Yomi fight against each other, but they end up kind of stalemating each other. So I attack Yomi, saying, all right, well, I can come into Delka, right? Because that was really my goal, is just to take the rest of the Agarthan lands, come into Delka, and then I can defend here, and Fomoriya and Lanka can fight over Yomi lands. That didn't actually happen, though, because Fomoriya basically pulled out as soon as they could, and Yomi fought, but Yomi was also getting pressured in another conflict, I think? Or I say Yomi. Lanka. It was at this point, right, that Lanka and I basically established let's work together. We're not quite allies, but we're gonna be beneficial partners. And that lasted for the majority of the game. So, this war against Yomi was incredibly protracted, and I had some really bad defeats against them. But the end was that I had two kingdoms worth of land. Yomi had one, and I had an ally who was relatively big for being a singular individual and had great raiding opportunities, right? Like, Lanka at this point in the game was able to raid the shit out of Yomi, which is really good because if Lanka had not been raiding Yomi would have been raiding me, and I didn't really have good opportunities to counter raid Yomi, right? So it would have been, the raid game absolutely would have been Yomi's, and it would have been real bad. But as it is, we eventually stranglehold Yomi down. We take trackless waste. We get a little bit of, we basically carve out this little section. Lanka gets the rest. We get verdant steppe for a little while, and it's all good. See, this is why I need a rewind button. The other thing was this was really good because it is at this point that, I wanna go back. So this is year 5. So we're just gonna go up to year 5 because we're gonna pay attention over here. See, I need like a slider. Oh, you can click. Okay. The one place I can click, really? The one place I can click. Okay, whatever, fine. At least I'm experimenting with it because I'm sitting here in my brain like, this can't be the way things are supposed to happen, right? So, it's late fall in the year of 4 of the Ascension Wars. We have just about wrapped things up with Yomi, but there are a couple little parts and pieces missing. Also, hi Hinom, thanks for coming in there at the end. Thanks, super appreciated. Anyways, war has started against a lot of other people. We didn't look at this. Let's go back over here. So while we were busy with Yomi, Pan attacks Kailasa, and I think Kailasa actually held Pan for a while, for the better part of a year and a half or so, which is pretty well done. And during that, I believe Mictlan was also at war with Pan, at least somewhat. And I don't know, I think Hinom got involved somewhere. There were a lot of back and forth, there were a lot of peace treaties, etc., etc. But it is towards the end of year 4, right, that Pan starts to move towards a win. They have... Motherfucker, why do I do this to myself? They have... Stop it. They have a couple thrones, Raphabolia, they have Silverfangs, they have Hall Woods, they take Titan's Breath Peaks, and I can't remember if this was a violation of our agreement or not. I honestly don't remember. But they take it, and it's... The whole world had been on high alert up to this point, right? Because this is 1, 2, 3, 4... 5 thrones, and I think we needed 7 to win. So Pan is over here, has Realm of Silence, but I don't think has the 7th throne. That would be the kind of like end of the game. But it is at this point that everyone's like, oh shit, nope, can't do that. I guess it's technically not 7. I think you could do a victory with 6, but you needed 6 tier 3s? I don't remember. We had a weird throne setup in this game. Anyways, this is thankfully towards the end of dealing with Yomi, because I have to full commit over here, and this is where I did the attack with my god, and then a big army, and that was a really big moment for me. And honestly, here's the thing. I think Pan would have kicked the shit out of me if it was not for the fact that Pan had been warring against Kailasa, and Kailasa did a very good job defending, right? Warring against Hinom, warring against Mictlan, and then basically it was just like, okay, well, I Kool-Aid Man in from the east. So there's a little bit of initial counter raiding that Pan does, and then it's big armies and a couple of, I think it's at this point that I had some Ishibs, some water Ishibs with Moss Body and some decent gear, and I think I had some Enkidu Shamans as well, maybe, as kind of thugs to do a little bit of light raiding, and it really made the difference, along with Hinnom's thrust into Kailasan territories. There were a couple of big victories that I had, a couple of big victories that Hinnom had, but honestly, I think the majority of our work had already been done prior, by Kailasa, by Mictlan, etc. And that was a really, really big thing for us. So we come in, and there's fighting back and forth, but the actual war with Pan is over relatively quickly. It's about a year and a half. I think, which is a pretty decent time. And that is a huge boon for us. We now have Agartha, we have our capital, right, our territories, which are relatively rich territories, and then we have Pan, who also had relatively rich territories. And this is a really big thing for us. So the unfortunate side effect is I think it's, yeah, no, it's not I think, it's immediately after this point, or during this, around year 6 or something like that, while we're fighting with Pan, or as we're ending the battle with Pan, Mictlan puts up the first of so many astral corruptions in this fucking game. So many astral corruptions in this game. So astral corruption goes up, and this is where we're experimenting with trying to defend against astral corruption, and it's not working. This is also where Mictlan is attacking Fomoria and Lanka is attacking Fomoria. So we get Tyrannia, finally. The thing that started it all. You killed our god. Ah! So there's that. And so this is kind of like a, okay, well, I can't function, because I didn't know at this time. And honestly, I think even at this time, I think I would still make the choice that I did make. But it was basically like, okay, well, Mictlan's gotta die. And that was a horrendous experience. Marching on Mictlan was an effort in futility. It was so incredibly painful, not really because of the armies that we faced. It was because of the attrition, the lack of supplies, which we managed. We did not manage well in the beginning, but we did manage. But it was just such a pain in the ass. Eventually, though, right, we raided down Mictlan territory. At this point, though, Mictlan didn't need the money so much as they were losing locations for blood hunting, right? And they basically just hold out in White Forest, Black Harbor, Mictlan, and High Woods for a pretty long time. This was excruciating. So Hinnom actually takes White Forest. We take Mictlan. Lanka comes in and starts to take locations. But it's at this point, right, we have Mictlan, we have High Woods, but we are so overextended, and we also start to, I think, fight against... Lanka is fighting against Hinnom, and we start fighting against Hinnom as well. And this is one of the longest points in the game, is the Hinnom-Lanka war. I don't know, the war of double aggression as and here I'll tell you what the freaking reason was. This is okay. Here's the legit thing. There is one, Lanka and I had been working together for a while, so there was some history there too, right? But the big thing was, Relay isn't doing a lot at this point, right? They are occasionally attacking Lanka, but they're not really threatening me. So I have two other focuses. I have either Lanka or I have Hinnom, right? Or and also basically I'm trying to keep them from tag teaming me. So we declared war on Mictlan because Mictlan put up astral corruption. And Hinnom did it immediately after, right after we killed Mictlan's god in this big battle at Mictlan. Hinnom just goes, boop, astral corruption. And I was like, Lanka, let's kill him. Like that was basically the diplomacy. It was just like, well, I committed everything. Like I was literally like, I'm not gonna fight you, I'm not gonna fight you, I'm just gonna kill this guy because of astral corruption, because it is just making it unplayable. And as soon as that happens, Hinnom goes, I'll do it again, bitch. And puts up astral corruption. So I was just immediately like, okay, well, Lanka, would you like to kill Hinnom, and then we can just slugfest each other for the victory? And that is pretty much what happens. But I will say, Hinnom puts up a beautiful, beautiful defense. It takes us... It takes us about 5 years to kill Hinnom. And I say us, but it is a one-sided raid, or not one-sided, it is a Hinnom and Lanka raiding the shit out of each other, and me mostly twiddling my thumbs, because I did not have good raiding potential. And Hinnom did a great job of meeting me army for army and teaching me the error of my ways when it comes to fucking morale. My god, Dark Skies. I spent in like tens of turns putting together gear to try to not just fucking route everything. Constantly. It was so incredibly painful. But, and I say this almost exclusively off the back of Lanka keeping Hinnom busy, because I think if it had just been Hinnom versus me, Hinnom would have won, pretty easily. But because of the pressure that Lanka applies, I am able to take the Kailasan territories, and I am able to take the Tirnanog territories. I lose Mictlan for it, but Mictlan at this point was basically, I think, 0 pops, so all I was really losing were the gem income there. So that was kind of whatever. And then we get into the trenches, and this is where a huge amount of this war was spent, was this line of scrimmage between the thrones, Raphabolia, Realm of Silence, and White Forest, and the capitals, Pangaea, Tirnanog, and Kailasa. And you can see, like, the line of scrimmage goes back and forth with raiding and counter-raiding pretty consistently, excepting, and this is kind of like the big deal, is at the beginning of year 10, we take Halbathria from Hinnom. And this is a big deal, because if you look up this line, right, it's all of my forts were on the capital line, and all of Hinnom's forts were on the throne line. Halbathria was the only fort not on that line, and as soon as we got Halbathria, we put a temple down, and we got an army in there, and we start to push our dominion. And as we start to push our dominion, there's a bunch of stuff that goes back and forth through here, but these are the various time periods where we put up a gift of health. I think Hinnom took it down with their own gift of health. We put up a gift of nature's bounty. That goes down. I think Hinnom puts up Arcane Nexus in addition to the Astral Corruption, but then Relay, we actually worked together with Relay, if I remember correctly, for Relay to take the Arcane Nexus. And then it's just constant raiding back and forth, and that constant raiding, that constant poke, it is many years of us attacking places like Rafabolia and White Forest before eventually, as Hinnom's... this was actually... Oh, no. I remember. This could have probably gone on for more years, but Hinnom messed up. Hinnom did a wish, and the wish backfired because they input the wish incorrectly or what have you. And when you do that, the wish, it'll kill your caster, basically. And the caster was, I think, the same caster that had Arcane Nexus. I don't know if it's the same caster that had Astral Corruption on, but that was a big deal. It was a big turning point in the war, and it afforded us the opportunity to actually come in, and this is probably at year 12 or 13, but you can see this line of scrimmage just goes back and forth, and Lanka gets all the way up here, but eventually we break Rafabolia. Pretty shortly after her, we break White Forest, and then we break Realm of Silence. And this is pretty big for us because it is at this point that we have 6 thrones. But because of these 6 thrones that we have, and I think if we actually look back to the Pangean era, right, these are the same 6 thrones that Pan had. But for us, again, we had a weird number of ascension points required. For us to win, we needed at least 2 more thrones. And that's when we start taking our looking at Jabal Kish, Sleepy Wolds, Grainport, and Sleepy Mountains. But really, it was Sea Untamed and Sleepy Mountains were never really on our radar. It was always like Grainport, Jabal Kish, and Sleepy Wolds. So, and a little bit of this one up here, the Own one. But that one was also kind of like a very meh one. So, I don't remember the specifics of it, but we can see almost as we don't even get to the point of actually finishing off. There we go. We take Realm of Silence, and it's already begun, right? Lanka is raiding us. We're raiding back and forth into Lanka. Our raiding is way less potent than Lanka's raiding is. So Lanka is able to hit us here or there. At this point in the game, though, we do have a decent sized contingent of immortals, liches, and vampires and things like that. So we are able to counter raid fairly effectively. But we're not able to really like push very effectively. And this is at a point in the game where I legitimately had the opportunity to win if I played it correctly. And the way that I needed to play it correctly is if you go back and you look at the score graphs, right? The army size, this is the point where Lanka starts to transition into generating just massive amounts of chaff, but they weren't there yet. And I had these really big, pretty strong armies that we had taken the thrones with from Hinnom. And so if I had, and I did this with a couple, if I did this with Villia, right? If I had just taken this, put up temples and preach, spread my army out for a little bit, continue counter raiding, take Saramatia, rinse repeat, right? Like push in. I took Misty Bog, do that, right? aim for Mictlan, get high woods, just make these targeted attacks. Especially at this point, I had started to generate things like Fiends of Darkness and Storm Demons. I don't think I was quite at Storm Demons yet, but I was starting to generate Storm Demons. So that was a big opportunity for us to really utilize our strength, counter raid, right? Because we can counter raid and counter raid and counter raid forever. But this is where it all starts to go. I can't remember if... I'm trying to keep my eyes over here. So we start to lose, yeah, we start to lose this area. Did I already do the Grainport location? I can't remember when Grainport actually was. I don't feel like it was this late. I guess we never actually took it. It's probably around in this time, right? Because we never actually took these locations. We just briefly sieged them. But we did take things like Sinathe and Chibia. So this is when we were attacking Grainport and attacking... well, I guess we weren't attacking anything else. We were just attacking Grainport. Oh, right. Because I didn't need 2 thrones. I just needed a throne. I was trying to sneaky... freaking Grainport. Anyways. So... we failed in Grainport, and then eventually we failed in Javal Kish and Sleepy Wolds, and then Lanka took us, pushed Agartha in, took that land, and then you can see, right, we have this resurgence where we're basically down to we're rated down to hell and back, right? But all of a sudden, we throw up Purgatory and boom, we bounce right back. But, oh my goodness. Lanka does such a good job here, just throwing up every single location just gets fortified. It's fantastic. And then on both borders, it's less so right up here, but all across the territory, Lanka just starts to put up forts, takes down Purgatory, and that's that. 16-year game. 16-year game, in-game, and legitimately almost a 2-year game in real life. I've got to hand it to Lanka and Hinnom, Relay, and all of the players that were in the game prior to that, but mostly those 3 because they stuck it out for so long. Honestly, this was like 2 different games. It was 80 to 90 turns of an actual game, and then it was another 100 turns of Relay, Hinnom, Lanka, and I just slugging it out. And it was amazing. I learned so much in this game, from various tricks and item opportunities with Astral Corruption, the way a lot of different things function, a lot of hotkeys and things like that, ideas for strategies, ideas for breakpoints on research and power spikes with various nations, how to actually exploit those things, strategies based around Dominion pushing, and a lot of other really interesting stuff. I'm actually... So the game, this is about 2 or 3 weeks later. I say it's probably closer to a month later, honestly. The game's been done for a little while. And I still go back to the channel and just look, and I'm like, this game was a part of my life for such a long time that I'm actually sad to see it go. But see it go I shall. It was a great time. Lanka earned a well-deserved victory. And that is gonna be it for EA Tetragrammaton. I might eventually do a breakdown again for if there's enough interest, I might do a updated nation overview for because I learned an incredibly large amount when it comes to and what they are good at and how I think they can actually win games. I think is not an underappreciated. Well, I don't think it's considered a bad nation necessarily, but I don't think it's considered very good. Like, most people disparage their troops, right? The Mushushus are considered to be way too expensive for what they do. Their basic troops don't have head gear, helmets, whatever. And a lot of nations don't look at their mage line and go, yeah, that's really awesome. And they don't, for good reason. They're very, very focused into a niche that doesn't really allow them to do a lot of interesting things unless you're building around that, or unless you're stalling, because they're really good at stalling people out. I think is probably one of the biggest things. So anyways, I might end up doing that. I might not. My schedule is super, super duper busy at the moment. But I do have a new series coming that I'm hoping will be launching this coming weekend. I think is when I'm actually going to be able to get it up and going. And then I will actually be looking for new games and hopefully be back into a regularly scheduled upload from those games. This holiday season has been a lot of work and stress for me, both in my work life and in my home life, so I haven't been able to produce as much Dominions content as I want. But I also have some, hopefully, other things, not just gameplay, coming out in the, fingers crossed, near-ish future. But we'll see how that goes. Anyways, this was an amazing game. Thank you very much for all the players involved. Congratulations to Lanka. We'll sit on the true god ascended. The god of unnatural lust. Master of vegetation. Coppercaster is a really cool title, actually. Devil in the detail. Congratulations, Lanka. You fought an amazing game. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.